Waystone sustain as such. So that means we have to look into, if people say that there is, and that means we have to understand why that is, because I don't think that's the experience that like we're having as we're playing ourselves. And like, so there's always this thing where it's like we want to hear what the players say, but then we always want to confirm with our own experience that like when we do what they're doing, that we're getting the same experience before we can kind of make a good decision of what a change would be. So I don't know that we've identified why it is yet that players are having problems with Waystone sustain.
Skill issue.
And so that's like, and this will change this obviously because there's more bosses and so on. Like that's the thing you can do. And killing bosses will give you, upgrades and so on. Like that'll help with that. But I guess I sort of like, I feel like we need to understand that problem more before we can really work out what exactly needs to happen with it.
There's certainly more to learn there, but as I said before, the minimum's now higher for sure.
Right. So it can be just people running into bad specific maps that like have specific problems that someone who.
I suspect it's also just a lot of people struggling with the difficulty in dying, and like it's obviously very different if you're dying even in 30% of your maps, 20% of your maps. I mean even 10% of your maps. It can make that difference.
True, mate.
So yeah, there's definitely 100% more to look into there.
True.
But like, I personally, I went to from tier 1 to tier 15 maps in a total of 32 maps, and I've sustained since. And then you see the things where people are talking about map sustain, and I'm like, okay, am I in a different universe? And the answer is probably
in a different universe.
The answer is probably yes, I am in a different universe. But from a purely anecdotal standpoint of my own, I try and I'm going to see how it is for myself, and okay, I'm somewhere else. We need to look more into this somewhere. So we have other people at the office as well, of course, and you get their anecdotal experience, but we need to look at this from a much broader perspective.
Called out, bro.
Either way, what we've just put forward is an improvement to all of that. Higher maximum, sure, higher minimum, and a bit more safety for bad luck. But what it doesn't really account for right now is safety for people dying and, failing 50% of their maps or 80% of their maps.
Yeah,
there
they
is
shouldn't
a slightly
progress.
more subtle thing going on, I think, which
they shouldn't progress.
It's kind of unfortunate how this turned out, but effectively, because you can power through the map tiers really fast, it means that you don't get a chance to find the gear that you would otherwise have as you went through those tiers. And that means that effectively when you do, like you might be playing higher tier maps than what you really should be playing for the amount of wealth that you found. And that means that your map sustain is bad because you're dying more often because you're kind of playing higher tier content. And that is on us because we need to adjust that so that you you only start effectively, in order to progress up the tiers, it needs to be more that we need to sort of gear check you more as you go up a little bit to make sure that you've got the gear you need before you're going up the tiers. But this is going to be a really subtle and tricky thing to get exactly right. There's quite a lot to that, and that's kind of more of a thing that we can sort of look at over a bit of a longer period of time because it's going to require some adjustments. But yeah, that's just sort of another one. But there's quite a lot of implications to all of that, and I don't know that we're quite ready to understand exactly what would need to happen for that to happen. But that is kind of one of the issues that we're seeing is just effectively people playing content that's harder than what we would hope they will be playing for the gear that they have, which then causes the death, that causes the sustain to be bad. So that's kind of that issue there.
They're decking on meat grinder. They will. They will. If players can.
We're actually going to circle back to what you mentioned, Mark, regarding Expedition, not caring about the layout and whatnot, but you also mentioned, I believe it was in the video, right? You mentioned more substantial changes to Expedition coming later. So the question is, do you have any particular examples of these things you're hoping to accomplish with this mechanic?
Yeah, I can't really say what it is, but what I can say is it is intended that every league, sort of, I'd say without promising it, because we're allowed to make exceptions. It is kind of intended that every league provides some sort of access of character or crafting power that is abnormal. And so,
different that you can't get anywhere
different.
else.
Mostly character power here. So aside from the unique items, obviously they can, or sometimes don't, provide character power that can be attained elsewhere. This is more about something else that's, similar to, say, the instilling your amulet with a notable. It's something that only that provides. It gives you more power than you would have had if you had never done it. And so ideally, every league would kind of do something like that, or provide a crafting avenue that would then give you something like that, or give you more power in general. But yeah, we just kind of have the vendor mechanic where you can do some crafts, and none of those crafts are abnormal. They're not adding extra benefits or mods or anything outside of that. So yeah, we have intention to add something to that, and probably to a lot more of them over time, and as you get new ones that each obviously have this thing in mind, where we're trying to say how can we make characters feel a little bit more powerful by engaging in that content. But yeah, Expedition just didn't quite get it when we ported it over. Like, you know, we discussed heaps of things, like we could add some more ROG crafts, so to speak, now that even though it's now 3 out of 4 of them crafts.
It definitely needs something else, like,
yeah,
for sure.
it just needs something cool, something better, and something not rushed. Which is we were in a position where we're going to rush something, and it's like, hold on, let's not do that. Let's get it right and do it a bit later.
True. Do it once, do it right.
Fair. I like that take. Another question we have is regarding the Arbiter of Ash now having 6 resurrection or revive attempts, right? And other attempts to, or adding other attempts to other pinnacles over time. I guess the question comes down to why wait with adding extra attempts?
Ultimately, the reason is just time. So it might even be that in the patch that we do deliver, that some of those other ones are already done. It's just that because the video had to be made last week, and like we were like, are we gonna, like, we knew we would get time to sort out the Arbiter, and we were like, we don't know if we're gonna get time to do the others, so we'll just like promise that one, and then if the others come, then that's just a bonus. Yeah, effectively, there's like a little bit of trickiness around each one to like just work out all the states of everything. Like, I mean, if you're looking at like just as a random example, and this isn't obviously that big of a deal, but it's just, you know, someone has to do it, is like for the breach one, for example, we have to decide like, okay, so we can't really let you have the economy, like you can't reset the whole map because then you'd get the drops from the breach a second time. So then it's like, okay, we have to make sure we put a checkpoint in the thing, and that means you have to like do someone has to go write some code to like make the breach thing work correctly for checkpoints, and you know, it's just like random stuff like that, just little details that just mean that like it'll take a little bit longer to do those other ones. But I mean, we're not talking a really long time, right? We're just like, someone will get to it in the next couple of weeks. It's just, you know.
I'd say King in the Mist. King in the Mist will almost certainly be done because it's an isolated boss fight in a room with nothing else going on. Yeah. But for the logbook and for the breach one, you have to have some manual intervention, and we have to really make sure that there's none of that like
exploit,
you know, respawn at checkpoint at this exact point in time, and all of a sudden you get the loot again kind of thing going on, because that obviously can be quite destructive.
Duplication. Yeah, it's literally just a time thing. As I said, we'll